Welcome, wanderers of the world, to Dovii Forum, where the pulse of the global discourse beats strong. I'm your host, Ivan Jules Smith, and I will be your navigator through the currents of geopolitics, national security, and the ever-evolving tapestry of global affairs. Today, we will be talking about what is it that China did right, or what did they get right with the economy and the world didn't. What are the lessons that we could take from China's policies that brought them to be an economic powerhouse? So stay with me while I get into it. Indian outsourcing is a good way of creating a middle class, okay? But even China did that. The big difference is that China decided between 25 to 50% of the profits earned by renting out cheap factory labor, those profits should be reinvested in Chinese own technology to compete with the West and with the Americans. This is what their plan was. So what they would do is they would copy the Americans, they would copy the West and the developed nations, and they would create their own domestic Chinese technology. So what they did was they invested their profits, which many countries did not do. They invested their profits to build their own technology. And because what China did, today they are number one in many areas of artificial intelligence, and in some areas they are only number two to the Americans. It's because of the initiatives that they had taken. So because they invested in technologies of the future, today they are number one. They are number one in solar panels and robotics. And if you look at the 8 or 10 major technologies in artificial intelligence, or in the artificial intelligence umbrella, China invested in all of them. They made some very good bets. And this is where you see government vision is needed by any country. This is where government vision is needed, and you bring government and industry together. They work in a collaboration, and that is what China did. So while we see when China was investing in their own technology for the future, what many of the world leaders, be it America, Europe, or even India, did not realize what was happening. It was Chinese, or rather China, that was setting the rule for the big game. Okay, Chinese students would go to America and Europe to study. Even Indians would go. But there's a difference. The Chinese students, when they would study and complete their programs or courses from their respective countries that they have traveled to, 90 to 95% of these students would return to China. But sadly, that is not the case with the Indian students that would go and seek education in other countries. The tendency was for the Indian students to settle down in those countries, not to come back to India. So that is where the Indian students were adding value to the country that they have settled down in, or the country that they have moved to. So if you look at it, India is doing very well as an individual. In fact, Indians have a lot of billionaires here and there. Some are very famous. Big companies, Google, Microsoft, YouTube, Apple, things like that. But Chinese have done better as a collective community, as a country. Okay, because they have gone back to their home nations, mainland China. Now, China did benefit from outsourcing quick and easy money, but they reinvested that profits in long term. Okay, they did not just do short term jugaad, what you call it in India. They invested in long term, and I think Indians got stuck. They got stuck in between of this particular short term jugaad. Right now, the government is inviting all these multinational high-tech companies, giants, American companies, European companies, to build their strategy to counter China. So what is happening in India is indirectly almost we are sold out intellectually. Intellectually, India is sold out. And that is not a very good level to be in currently. This again is according to my own opinion, that I feel that the brain drain that has been taking place for so many years, alright, we need to keep a check on that. And that is the only way India is going to come out victorious. China is the world's second largest economy and the world's largest importer. No nation on this planet can beat the kind of imports that China does. I mean, the volume is huge. Now, 40 years ago, that is in 1970, it was a poor nation, largely a rural nation. 30% of the population of entire China were living in poverty. That started to change in 1978. In 1978, when China launched major economic reforms, these things started to change. The first were agriculture. Farmers were allowed to sell their produce in the open market. When China did that, success in the agriculture, what they did, they got success to such an extent that success in the agriculture sector opened more trade and led to the privatization of other state-owned enterprises. So that was what China did in the 1970s. In 1980, China became a member of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, what we know today as the IMF. That is the same year it created 4 special economic zones. Okay, Xiamen, Shenzhen, Zhuhai, and Shantou. Forgive me if I have mispronounced these names, because Chinese cities' names are like tongue twisters. However, when they created these 4 special economic zones, it was done to encourage foreign direct investment. And as the country opened up, its trade and businesses to the outside world, companies started flooding China. Factories started flooding China. All because of the availability of cheap labor. Now, when companies started flooding China to take advantage of this cheap labor that was available, stock markets in Shanghai and Shenzhen opened up in the 1990s. Economic growth boomed the following decade, averaging around 10% every year. This was the growth rate that China achieved during this period. Now, more than 500 million people, it's not a small amount, 500 million people had been directly lifted out of poverty during this period of time. Since China's economic reforms began, people were coming out of poverty and the lifestyle of the people, the Chinese people, were improving drastically. And it's been called an economic miracle. China's model of functioning, it's been called an economic miracle for a reason, because what China was able to achieve in that period of time, I don't think any nation on this planet has been able to achieve. So China's economic model is being considered as a case study, as an economic miracle. Many countries over, they have praised China for that. And it is an economy that the globe has come to depend upon. Is that something that is good for the other countries of the world? That is something I like you all to comment below. And can we, as a nation or as a world, learn from China's economic growth as to what they did right that we didn't? Because only if you're able to recognize what your drawbacks are, can change, effective change be brought into society. So let me know what kind of videos you like me to make, and I will definitely go ahead and make those videos for you all. Comment below, like, share, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, because it is your support that helps me make videos like these. Take care and God bless.